Greetings! Welcome to Frequency Bone Summer Music Connection 10, Video 3. We're continuing with the art of the student. And it's proving to be a very, how's that? Enlightening topic. And maybe, just maybe, because if we start with the student, right? I guess we should define what a student is. And has been said before, I think a lot of people, in a certain way, feel like they're a developing person their whole life. So it's not like, okay, now you're not a student anymore. It's just that the level changes. You know those Rubank books, right? Or other kinds of books, they'll have a beginner's level or elementary level, and then they'll have intermediate level, and then they'll have advanced. And you could look at other disciplines and see that they have a whole other level, from a journeyman to apprentice to this. They even have assistant professors, associate professors, and professor. And I don't think that has to do with ability. I just think that's the course of time you have to spend at a university to be able to get the level, the status of professor. There's more money that comes with each one too. But every time you develop as an artist, you don't necessarily get more money, right? Now, if you're in a freelance situation, you start freelancing, you get certain gigs, and then you get another level of gigs, and then you get like the big gigs of the town, let's say, and then maybe you land a university position or a conservatory position or a military job or some levels of symphony orchestras, which the pay scale rises a lot of times. Then you start to see, a money aspect with it. But in terms of the actual essence of the art, every time something else happens, whether it's a certain thing developing in your range or your technique, integrated into what you're supposed to say. Oh, that wasn't said right. Integrated into your expression, and it provides a greater vehicle for the expression, and then you discover subtleties within that. All these things will contribute to you being rewarded in a way that money actually could never even do it. We all know that money is not the ultimate reward. Okay? So, there's levels of the student. Therefore, there would be levels to the art of the student. If someone's beginning, what are the arts for them? Play it every day. Play it. If your teacher assigns you something, do it. Have what's called the immediate application. And this immediate application actually, I think, has an expression throughout the course of someone's whole development. And if it's a lifelong development, meaning they start at age 9 and they continue for 50 years or whatever, 60 maybe. Or, the last day on the planet, they toot a little note, at 90 years old or something. I wouldn't be surprised if Herseth played right up to the very, 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 very end. I know he passed away in his mid-80s. And I heard him play when he was 83, Adolf Herseth. I'm sure most of you have heard of him, former principal trumpet of the Chicago Symphony for over 50 years. So what am I trying to say all this? I think it's pretty clear that there's a development process. And a lot of times in our culture, what do we say? There's a student, beginning student. There's some at an intermediate level. And then there's some that get a little more advanced. So the more advanced starts happening, where someone can say, oh, they're extremely advanced for age 16 or something. And then, well, for a freshman, they're just off the charts. Different words come in. For freshmen, we'd like to see that maybe there was a little more going on than what they demonstrated. And so forth. Everyone has these classification systems. I don't know how very systematic they are, but they try to identify through language a level. And sometimes that level's a mixed bag. Wow, their tone seems to be very developed. Too bad they can't articulate very well. Wow, they have a great low range, and then high range goes bye-bye. Or the reverse. They have a great high range, but then once it gets past the mid-range, a little lower, that's just not their thing. So we have, at one point, different developments happening at different times. So that's a very interesting thing, this aspect of a mix of various abilities. And that probably continues on. Wow, he's in his 60s and he still has a really good high range like I remember. Too bad he can't play as loud as he used to. Sometimes that's what I think of myself in certain ways. You know, certain things stay, certain things actually get better. Certain things start to wane a bit at certain times. And that can even happen in the course of a career. So it's not like 1, 2, 3, 4. It's not that kind of linear idea. That doesn't really work. So let's get a little more specific now that we kind of threw some things out. What was just said is that there are levels. And those levels have their own development. It's like watching someone get taller. You can feel, oh, they're taller than they were last time I saw them, which was a year ago. Wow, their playing has jumped another level. I haven't heard them in 6 months. Or you have some really hard workers. I know when I was taking lessons from someone, now maybe that's also a sign of a certain kind of student thing, because a lot of times when people aren't taking lessons anymore, they're not considered students. Someone can say, well, they're a pretty good player, they're a very good professional player, oh, they're an artist. Sometimes we save artist for the highest part, or the most developed part of musicians, which implies that they have so much of the aspects of playing together that there's a certain high level of skill involved. But let's look at it this way. And you've probably heard me say this on many other videos. A beginning student has to think a lot and pick up by example. You know, that's one of the best ways is through transference through a student. So the student at that level, their art is to be receptive, right? Watch and do. Watch and try to do. Listen, try to do. And if you keep at it on a regular basis, you're going to start to notice a difference because you're going to start building a relationship between you and the instrument. Your mind and the instrument, your body and the instrument, your body and mind to the instrument. You realize, oh, I really want to play, and then you pick it up, go, pfft, and you think, why didn't this work today? You start getting better, you start noticing differences more. Okay? So I think that's very interesting because you start to have more comparison the more you do something. See how organic it is? So depending on the intensity of your desire and your excitement about it, these things will come to you probably a bit quicker than someone who just, let's say they like to play, it's fun, get together with their other friends and honk out some stuff in 8th grade band, but maybe they don't practice all summer. They pick it up and it feels the same and it doesn't sound that much different. I remember when I was from 4th grade to 5th grade, I came into my elementary school, Mr. Ferrero. He was really nice and encouraging, and we had our first rehearsal. And he heard, I don't know what he heard, but he heard me and he said, "Did you practice all summer?" And I didn't even know what he was. I'm thinking, didn't everyone else? All I wanted to do was play. So I said, "Well, yeah." He said, "Wow, you're starting to get that big trombone sound." He said, "What are you doing on Wednesday nights? I want you to come to the All-City Elementary Orchestra, where kids from all different schools would meet and play." I was like, yes! So you can look at that and you can see consistency and regularity are part of what a student needs to do to improve. So I didn't even think of not playing during the summer. So that's how attached and into it I was. I needed to play. I needed to play. I needed to express myself in that medium. So I practiced what my teacher told me and kept it up all summer long, whether I had lessons or not. So then I got into a youth orchestra at a higher level. Okay. And just kept playing. And then a couple of years later, I actually studied with Ronald Ricketts, who's a terrific trombone player, nice, wonderful man, nice, good teacher, and just really felt good with him. And I took from him for a couple of years. But those same ingredients of, I love this, I don't ever want to give it up. And I just continued and continued. And what he said, I applied. What he said, I applied. I was receptive, I applied. The only thing once in a while, I probably wasn't the ideal student in another way, because he said to get these Rochou melodious etudes. Now, in those days, they weren't saying Bordoni, saying Rochou. So no offense to everyone who gets very upset by saying Rochou. We all know that it was Bordoni. Okay? So he said, get book 1, but there was only book 3 where we were. So I got book 3. And I remember I was in 6th grade, so I was 11. And I looked at it and went, wow, okay. I was trying to work it out, you know. I liked some of the melodies. I thought some of the rhythms, wow, those are a lot of black lines. 30-second notes, you know, but at a slow tempo. And I told him that I got that book, and he said, tell your mother she's going to ruin my lessons if she doesn't get the right book. I thought it was kind of cool. I was playing out of the hard book, you know. So I got the other book. I got the book 1 and all that. And but I always kind of wanted to do things that were a little beyond what I could do. And so there's an enthusiasm. I think when a teacher sees a student that's enthusiastic, that takes what they say seriously, that applies it and works on it, it's pretty hard not to like a student like that. Especially if you feel they have a love for it or a growing glow about them from doing it. So are these arts? I don't know. But their attitudes, inner drives, and application. So those things always stayed with me. So the beginning student needs to be receptive and apply, and stay at it regularly. Listen, application, stay with it, consistency, and regularly. Okay? I know my Ed Von Hoff, my first teacher, kind of taught me to go. He taught the smiling embouchure. A lot of great players had it. But Ronald Ricketts said, you know what? Why don't you, let's see if we can just stop that so it just kind of stays without having to depend on this way, but more almost the reverse. Took out a mirror. My dad's present to me that Hanukkah was an embouchure visualizer. And he looked at it and he went, I paid $12 to get you what looks like to be a, metal bubble blower. But I'd be like that, and I'd look in the mirror and make sure they were staying down. And I'll never forget when all of a sudden, after hearing Ron Ricketts' lovely resonant sound, that I made the connection between that and opening up my throat. And my sound went from ghetto. I went, oh my. It was elation. I was so excited. I didn't want to let that go. So if you get encouraged and inspired by your own progress, which won't happen unless you really keep at it, that gives you a lot of fuel to want to keep going and see what else is out there, or see what else is in here. So I think we touched on a few of handy, that's not the right word, useful, beneficial, healthy ways of going on. Now, I never had a teacher that said, look, I know you're practicing, but you actually have a terrible tone. You need to keep the note very, very steady. Keep the corners down. Ding-da-dun-da-da. Talking in a down bow, and talking in a down bow like this, or talking in a down bow like that. I didn't have anyone like that. I'm very grateful for that. Very, very grateful. And so then I went to Stephen Zellmer, and he got into really wanting to unify the quality of sound throughout all the ranges with that consistent articulation, but he didn't approach it stiffly. Like I see a lot of people are approaching it stiffly now. Ta, ta, ta. It was da. It had a lift and a buoyancy and a nobility about it. And so kept practicing, gotten better, and started to do lots of different solos. And even in my senior year in high school, in 10th grade, I did the Bloch Symphony, and I did the Grundal. I recorded the Alberschberger with my school orchestra, and ended my senior year in high school with the youth orchestra doing the Creston. Now, I know maybe it's common these days that there's very advanced students who might be doing that, but at the time, it stood out. I wanted to, and I went for it. So what am I trying to say? I'm trying to take from my own life and other people's, but a lot from my own, as you can see right now, what could be possible, the beginnings of cultivating art as a life wanting continuance in music, in art. And if I was told, practice this, practice that, I did. There were no questions. I didn't say, I'm not going to practice that. Never. Maybe it's because I didn't have lessons every single week. I had some space, but I filled that space with practicing because I wanted to. There's a lot of players, though, that start much later with these attitudes, and they turn out to be phenomenal players. So my life isn't the only way someone should be. But if he gives you some ideas, then this is part of the transference and the process. And also, I'll tell you another action that I did. I learned from everyone I'd be playing with. Junior high, even though I was far beyond the other students, I'd look at them. I'd look at their embouchures. I'd look at their work. I'd listen to their tone. I'd hear their potential. I'd hear what was keeping them back. And a lot of them then wanted to study with me because we just had fun, like finding things out. Back to that little old word of discovery, doesn't it? And then you can develop all sorts of things with it. Till next time, happy practicing.